How's it going, Jack Tackers, and welcome back to another video for you guys. Today, I'm going to be doing my review for Succession Season 4, Episode 9, which was titled A Church and State, obviously this being the penultimate episode of the series, and Logan's funeral episode, which I was very excited to see this one, and I actually expected the funeral to take place in the series finale, but obviously that's not the case, and the promo for next week looks very interesting. But overall, what were my thoughts on this episode in particular? Well, it was amazing. It was really damn good, and honestly just one of the best episodes in the entire show, at least in my opinion. I mean, the acting, directing, it was all great, and we'll talk about some of the acting moments in this with Kieran Culkin, Jeremy Strong, Sarah Snook. They're all great in this episode, particularly Kieran Culkin. But we'll go into that a little bit later in the review. But yeah, I just really loved the episode overall, and it's definitely probably my second favorite episode of the season. I think I said that about last week's episode. But yeah, it was just fantastic overall. And it starts off with everyone getting ready for the funeral, of course, and we find Rava in this episode again. And I really am glad that she's getting a bit more screen time throughout the episodes, because I actually do like her character, even though she's a bit more of a minor one. But basically, her and the kids are not going to be attending the funeral. They're going upstate because of all the rioting, kind of the disturbances going on with the election and all that. The city isn't really a safe spot right now, and they're kind of worried, so they want to go. But Kendall is incredibly upset by this, and that was just a very riveting scene, to be honest, where he's like trying to talk to his kids, and then he like stands in front of the car. He's like, "You're gonna have to run me over if you want to leave." And it's just like, yeah, that was a super intense moment. But I really enjoyed that. And also, someone who isn't attending the funeral either in this episode, Tom, which that was pretty interesting. But I do think that was something that he wanted to do. And I think it was kind of a bit of a tactic for him personally. But yeah, that he does show up later at the reception. He has a good moment with Shiv. But then we see that Shiv tells Roman and Kendall that she's pregnant, which was a pretty big moment as well in the episode, and I'm glad that they finally know about that, and Roman's reaction was very funny and strange, but I like that moment as well. And as Kendall's world is already kind of falling around him, Jess tells Kendall that basically she doesn't want to work for him anymore. Although Kendall kind of forces this information out of her, she says not to worry about it, and then Jess like goes into more detail about, the meeting that they have set up with each other. And yeah, Kendall is just, his world definitely is kind of falling apart around him, in my opinion. Although towards the end of the episode, it does seem like maybe he's back with it to a degree, or at least he has motivation to sort of take on Shiv. And we'll mention that a bit later, but yeah. And it was just really cool to see everyone in this church and all these characters in this room and all the returning minor characters and kind of side characters we had seen throughout the show, such as, well, for one, Greg's mom, which is kind of funny. I don't think she's been in the show since season 1. And then also, obviously, we could see Uncle Ewan, and we also get to see Marcia and, Caroline and Peter. And it was just really great to see all these characters that we had seen throughout the show finally be in this temple, well, in this church. And yeah, it was just really awesome to see that, because this is kind of what I imagined the funeral to be like. It was almost, in a way, this felt like a series finale in a strange way. I mean, obviously, all the plot threads aren't wrapped up, but, just in terms of seeing this scale and all these characters and kind of reminiscing, it felt reminiscent to me of, the earlier seasons. Just, we get to see these returning characters, and that was really cool. And basically, Shiv wants to be the U.S. CEO of Gojo, so Mencken won't block the deal, and she's in close with Matsson still, and then that was a pretty big reveal as well, that this is kind of Shiv's new plan of action. And then we see Roman not wanting Uncle Ewan to speak at the funeral, but Ewan does it anyway, and he actually ends up saying some negative but true things about Logan. And then Roman has to kind of follow up what Uncle Ewan has said. Keep calling him Uncle Ewan, but it's just Ewan, but it's their uncle. But Roman doesn't, his breakdown was really sad, and he doesn't really go through with his speech because he just kind of breaks down. And yeah, now we can talk about Kieran Culkin a bit more. He's coming for the Emmy. I mean, I think we all are kind of aware of this at this point. Kieran Culkin was just really good in this episode. And I think he definitely was the standout, although then we see Kendall come up and kind of deliver the speech, a bit more positive speech, and kind of has a bit more positive spin on things about Logan. By the way, we did get to learn some interesting things about Logan and how he thought basically he had polio and gave that to his little sister. That was kind of sad, and that was kind of an interesting tidbit of information Ewan said. But yeah, no, I did really like that moment when Kendall kind of is able to, I guess, have a bit more of a positive spin on things, talking about Logan. And I think Jeremy Strong was really fantastic in that scene as well. And I do think Kendall's kind of becoming a bit numb to it a little bit, and throughout the episode, like, because of all these things kind of attacking him earlier in the episode with Rava and his kids, and then like Jess and all that. And I think the emotional turmoil he's going through is just like almost too much, and he starts to become a little bit numb. But yeah, Roman, after bottling up all this emotion throughout the whole season and pre-grieving and all that, obviously was a lie. He finally has a wave of emotion, and we get to see him, especially when they go back to the gravesite of Logan at that mausoleum, which that mausoleum's like giant. It's really cool looking though. And we see that Roman just can't handle it. He goes back in the car to presumably cry, and it's understandable. Everyone kind of makes fun of Roman for crying, especially towards the end of the episode. We see like Carl and Jerry and them and Frank, I think, talking about how it's kind of spreading on the internet, Roman crying at the funeral. Kind of messed up in my opinion. I mean, obviously Roman isn't... none of these characters are good people, really, but I really do feel bad for Roman. And yeah, it was kind of messed up, and especially when Mencken calls Roman the Grim Weeper. Man, that was messed up as well. But yeah, Tom shows up at the reception, and him and Shiv share a bit of a moment. Tom's still very tired, which that does come into play a bit more in this episode. He kind of cries a little bit, and I think he's coming a bit more to terms with the fact that Shiv's pregnant, and I think maybe Tom and Shiv can, be together and maybe move past their differences. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, I think Tom's just going through it as well. A lot of characters are going through it though. And toward the end of the episode, Kendall talks to Roman, and he basically wants Roman's help to take down Shiv at the board, because we talked about Shiv wants to be the U.S. CEO, and she thinks that if there is a U.S. CEO instead of a foreigner CEO, that Mencken won't block the deal and all that. And I think it's going to be all-out war next episode, to be honest. And then basically at the end of this episode, after that conversation he has with Kendall, which Kendall was kind of, crapping all over Roman, telling him he screwed up big time, basically, with Mencken. He goes to the rioting areas in New York, and on those streets, and basically gets like punched in the face and trampled over, and that was hard to watch. And it's Roman just is kind of rock bottom right now, I feel like. But it seems like in the promo for next week's episode, he's kind of back with it, and it doesn't seem like his face is that bruised or anything. Like, they didn't show his face when he got punched, so I was like, oh no, is he really hurt? What's going on? But I think Roman's fine on a physical level, but on an emotional level, obviously, he's not doing so hot. A lot of these characters aren't doing so hot, and we'll see what happens next week. I think it's going to be, at this board meeting, it's going to be pretty crazy. It's basically going to be Shiv versus Kendall and Roman, and it'll be very exciting to see what happens with that. But fantastic episode overall. This really was, it felt like a penultimate episode. It felt like, things were getting wrapped up a little bit, and this Logan funeral was just, I was waiting to see this episode for such a long time, ever since, obviously, Logan died. And I cannot wait to see what happens with the rest of, I guess, the show, even though there's only one episode left. I can't believe it. I'm stunned. Really good episode, though. I loved it. And let me hear your thoughts on the episode down in the comments below. What did you guys have to say about it? What was your favorite part? I think Kieran Culkin was just fantastic in the episode, and that really just shocked me, to be honest, that moment where he breaks down. Loved it, though, and it was a very emotional episode overall. And solid stuff. But yeah, let me hear your thoughts down in the comments. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and check out my Letterboxd and Twitter down in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.